topic is like we Please call the roll, please.
Sure. Commissioner Tedesco,
Present.
Commissioner Volpe,
Here.
Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Olewski, Alternate Commissioner Carey,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Coviello, Alternate Commissioner Coles,
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Ma,
Here.
Commissioner Santiago,
Here.
Vice Chair Salka,
Here.
and Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley is obviously here. I did hear from Steve Wolowski, he will not be in tonight, so we will seat Commissioner Ma in his place. And with that, we have a quorum. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could all remain standing for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Okay, looking for a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting on July 18, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salko with a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Ma with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
We have one abstention, no opposition. Motion carries. Item number 7, Commissioner discussion, 2023 zoning regulations update, Peter Santago.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone should have gotten the update from Glenn of some changes people saw, and some very detailed stuff, so thank you for that. Keep looking, there's always stuff to find, make sure we want to be sure everything's correct. If you have things, please get it to, I think Dave is the focal point if you see something, either typo or whatever that, and I think we'd agree it's a very timely thing considering the amount of turnover we're going to have on the next commission, and we have a new town planner, and all that. It'd be nice to have a new set of regs that people can look at. It'd be a lot easier to see, but everyone's input is welcome, so do that. Caleb, do you have anything for team member you or Joe?
Nothing.
Yep, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
All set? Okay, Commissioner training, Dave?
Yep, so under the new Public Act, commissioners are required to take, I think, 4 hours of training that's offered by the state. Something was sent out to you guys. It's just kind of a primer and refresher on certain things related to your role. You can reach out to me with any questions. There's nothing that says you'll get in trouble if you don't, but it's best if you do. So at this point, it's good to get off on the right foot.
Okay, I've done some of that training. I think it's quite helpful, even if you have been doing this for a little bit. You'll learn something. So I encourage everybody to, if you have the availability, to be able to do that. Any other items for Commissioner discussion? Commissioner Clark?
Could you see me just bursting with
Yeah,
excitement?
Jen, go for it, man.
So briefly, in 2018, we received a grant to update our historic inventory based on the POCD published in 2016. Following that, we initiated a historical open space tour to advertise and highlight open space in our town. And I'm happy to announce the tour is back, and it is alongside Open Space Committee, Barnes Museum, and the Historical Society, September 16th. It's a Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Registration is required, and I want to thank Christina for all of her hard work, and anything you would like to add to that big announcement.
It's going to be such a joy to display and advocate for all of our beautifully preserved historic spaces in town. Register fast. You can register online at the barnesmuseum.org/calendar. There's only 25-ish spots, and it's free. So if you want to see these things and learn about the town's history through our spaces, hit it up. And I'm very grateful to Jen and everyone on the commission for involving me. So, woohoo, history.
All right, anything else? Anyone else have anything else to add? I'll just note, as was sent out to members of the commission earlier today, I believe, we do have a person who will be starting as our town planner on September 15th, so we look forward to him joining us. I think that today he might have stopped by and visited the town staff to acquaint himself and then acquaint them with him, so I did participate in the interviews last week. We had 4 candidates that we interviewed, and I think that the ultimate decision to go with Jeremy was a good one, and one that I fully support, and I look forward to him joining us in the middle of next month. So, but with that, let's move into item 8. Before we do that, I'm going to read a little preamble. If you've been here before, you'll be familiar with this. I will say before I do that, because I think a number of people in the audience may be here for the Lazy Lane proposed zone text amendment change. That item is going to be tabled this evening. That's item 8C, zone change number 576. We will not be taking action on that this evening. We're still waiting for some information from the applicant in order to take that up. That item will be taken up at our next meeting on September 5th. So if you're here for that, you're of course welcome to stay. But if you aren't interested in listening to us do what we do every 2 weeks, then by all means, don't feel compelled to stay. All right? That's, our next meeting is on September 5th, yep. It's sort of a game day, but yeah. Okay, all right, let's maintain some decorum as we go through our meeting. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Southington Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Robert Hammersley. I'm the chair of the commission. I'd like to take a few moments to explain the meeting format. Aside from administrative items, tonight's meeting is comprised of 2 parts, a public hearing and the business meeting. During the public hearing, the applicant will present the application to us in detail, which will allow the commission members and the public the opportunity to better understand what is being proposed. The commission members may ask questions during the presentation if needed. Then we will ask members of the public who support or oppose the application to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Wait to be recognized by myself. Once recognized, come forward to the podium right over here. State your name and address for the record, and please address all comments directly to me and not to the applicant or other members of the public. Be advised that this is your opportunity to ask questions and make comments on the application, because once a public hearing is closed, no additional testimony from the public or the applicant will be permitted. We will not, it is important to maintain order and decorum at all times during the meeting. After everyone has had a full opportunity to speak, all questions have been answered, and all information has been received. The commission will decide whether it's appropriate to close the hearing. We will not consider voting on the application until the business meeting portion of the meeting. During the business meeting, the commission deliberates on the application submitted and decide how to act on them. We generally have 3 different options. 1 is to approve the application as submitted. 2 is to approve it with stipulations, conditions, or modifications. 3 is to table the action for a future meeting. Or 4 is, in some cases, to deny the application. 4 affirmative votes of the commission are generally required to approve any application. If you have to leave the meeting before a decision is rendered, you can call the planning department, Dave LaValle down on the end there, tomorrow afternoon to get the results from tonight's meeting. And with that, we will move into our public hearing. I will beg the commission and the public's patience and agreement to moving item 8, D and E up. They are kind of smaller applications than the other ones. So if everyone's okay, I'd like to move those 2 items up. And then following that, I'd like to take those items up under our business meeting before we move back to the public hearing on items 8, B, or A and B under the agenda. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
All right.
Agree.
You good, Tessa?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So item 8D, Peter Sakurkowski. I'm sorry if I killed your name there. Petition to change, special permit application for 24 by 0.5 by 26 addition in excess of 25% of an existing non-conforming residential structure property located at 46 Jude Lane in a B zone, SPU 684. Peter, I assume that's you?
Yes.
Again, give us your name and address for the record, and then let us know what you plan on doing, please.
My name's Pete Charkowski. I live at 46 Jude Lane, and we are looking to put an addition on my house.
All right. That's it.
You pretty much covered it.
Well, that's what, I just read the agenda.
I can clarify a bit if you want,
Yeah.
Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so this application of Peter Sikowski requires a variance initially to allow 116% expansion of a non-conforming residential structure, which he did receive, where 25% expansion is allowed under sections 11-10.1 and 15-04 of the zoning regs. As it pertains to PZC, expansion of non-conforming structures can apply for a special permit as long as it's less than the 25% threshold, which he went to ZBA and got the variance, so now he can move forward with you. The small existing home has houses to the left and to the rear, with the highway being to the right. Property is just over an acre. The expansion appears to be in harmony with the surrounding area.
Thanks, David. Okay, Peter, anything else? No?
Yeah, I'd just like to say my house is very small, the way that it is now. I do have a kid on the way in January, first one, so we do kind of need the space for, for the kid. And just for everything else in general, so I'd appreciate it if we can make something happen.
Is this an expansion going vertically or horizontally, or both? Okay,
Well, the house now is 2 floors. We're gonna rip the roof off of the existing house. We're gonna put a dormer on the left side, if you're looking at it from Jude Lane. And then we're putting 2 floors on the whole thing.
okay, okay. Any other questions for members of the commission? Anyone? Christina?
Is the addition onto the house going to match the structure entirely, or is it, because you're taking the roof off, so it sounds like the whole thing's going to change? Is it going to look like one cohesive
Yes.
structure?
Yeah, the whole house will be vinyl siding when it's done.
Okay.
Right now, it's masonry, so.
Okay, cool. That's it, Mr. Chair, thank you.
I will note, and I'm going to ask you if you saw the note from our town engineer regarding a lateral that would
For
be.
the sewer?
For the sewer, right?
Yep.
You're aware of that?
Yeah.
You okay if we put a stipulation on this application to require that you meet his requirements?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
okay. All right. Take a seat, Peter. I'll open it up to members of the public and we'll see what we get, okay? So is there anyone here who would like to testify on this application? If you would like to, please come forward, give us your name and address, and let us know what you think.
Hi, I'm Scott Sharkowski, 147 West Street. I'm Pete's father, and basically, he's 5th generation of our family to live in town. His son will be the 6th. I retired from the Sulington Post Office. My wife works for the Board of Ed. We're not going anywhere. And he's got a big piece of property there. If you look at it, the house is going towards the highway. It's not encroaching on, you've got the plans there. But maybe it's personal, but we'd love to see him in town with the new grandkid a mile down the road, That's all I wanted to say, You got the plans there, so.
Yeah, I hope we can make that a walking
That-
mile and a half away.
I walked for 35 years.
We're
I think I
trying.
can get there. I think I can get down there.
Going down West Street might be a little bit dangerous in
It
that
is,
area,
but it's
but
what it is.
we're trying to
Yeah,
put those
yeah.
sidewalks piece by piece together, so.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, any questions of Scott for the members of the commission?
No.
Thanks for coming out, I appreciate your input. Anyone else like to testify on this application? Seeing none, Peter, anything to add? No, you're good? All right, any reason to keep this public hearing open? Everyone okay if we close it? We'll close the public hearing. Moving on to item 8E, Robert and Devin Gagier. Got Mark up here. Special permit application for a parent-grandparent apartment, property located at 134 Winchester Drive, zoned in R40, SPU 685. Mr. Lovely, this is your new development off of Churchill,
Churchill
correct?
Street, exactly, definitely. Good evening, Chair and fellow Commissioners. Mark Lovely with the offices at 710 Main Street, Plantsville, Connecticut. We're here before you tonight for a approval for an in-law suite. I actually have bigger copies if you guys can't bring them, so I brought them for you because I know it's so small to read on there. I do have the letter that was signed by the family members that are related, and the original was filed with the planning office. I actually also have the mailings that went out. I gave a copy to the planning office, so if you do need those, I have those with me. So basically, this is exactly the same home about 10 years ago this commission approved on 170 Pacer Lane, and it was built. What we have is we have a single-family residential with about approximately a 782 square foot in-law apartment. As you see, mine I have it highlighted. We have done a plot plan and everything, and it fits right into the subdivision with the lot. We don't need to really hinder any of the other homes in the neighborhood, so. Basically, if you look at the front view, you can't even tell it has an in-law into it. We have the door off to the side. We have the common in-law, the common mudroom that is required for the in-law as well.
Okay. That it, Mark?
Yes.
You all set? Any questions? Peter?
So this isn't built yet, Mark?
No, it's not built yet because we're required to get your approval before they'll give us a building permit.
Gotcha. So you have your standard homes that you're putting in that development, and you have a customer who needs an in-law apartment, so that's why you're here for that
Correct.
reason, basically, right?
Exactly, and this home won't be overbearing to the neighborhood because we have single-family homes in this neighborhood that are actually going to be bigger than this home already. so
That
it
was
won't
my
be
next thing.
Yep,
Okay,
so it won't be overbearing.
You all set?
you know the drill. Thank you.
Any other questions? Caleb?
I guess my only concern is when this was approved, we tried to do the, I will say, for a better lack of a term, the land swap, to try to get more green space for the town. So the deal was that you could build more houses. And so, in a sense, we're adding in another family unit into another house, into an already tighter space than it was initially prepared for.
Not really, because what happens is we have homes in this development that have 6 bedrooms in it. This with the in-law only has 5 bedrooms, and the footprint of this home is actually smaller than one of the ones that are almost 4,300 square feet that we're doing in there. And we didn't get any extra lots. What we did is we got the same number of lots that was available in the 1 acre zone, but just gave extra open space. So we didn't get a bonus really for any extra lots. We actually, when we did the 1 acre zone with using more land, we actually got the same exact number of lots.
It was a wash?
Yep, it was a wash.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, it
Okay.
was.
So we're only just adding essentially one more car to,
Exactly. Yep, and most of the houses in there have a 3-car garage, and this has a 3-car garage as well.
okay. Thank you.
You all set?
Yes, thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Any other members of the commission have any questions? The only thing I'll ask is, I see that on our memo, that there's some outstanding issues, but I can't find them on the website. So, Dave and what do we have that's sitting out there?
Just for us, I was good. Jim was just waiting for comments, health, water, and fire, all approved, so I'll let Jim chime in.
I think all that Jim wanted, you wanted a swale along the western property line, which was done, and I think we dropped it off. We are doing a couple perk tests for the town that the health department that they wanted, but that's getting done next week. But that swale that you requested is all set.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Since the lot wasn't, or the permit wasn't submitted, we'll just make sure we review the coordination of the grading and the swale when it comes time for the submission.
Do you think we need to put a stipulation on this one?
No,
or
we can review that.
You're going to get it anyway, so. You okay, Mark? All right. Let's open it up to members of the public then. If there's anyone who'd like to testify on this application, please come forward, state your name and address. Going twice. Anything else? Applicant, anything? No, we're good? Mark, you good? All right. Is there any reason to keep this public hearing open from any members of the commission? Are we okay to close it? Everyone all right? Okay, we'll close the public hearing on that. Again, I'm going to move into the business meeting on those 2 applications, so we'll move to item 9E, Peter Starkowski, special permit application for a 24.5 by 26 addition in excess of 25% on an existing non-conforming residential structure, property located at 46 Jude Lane, Zone Business, SPU 684. What's the commission's pleasure on this one?
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve SPU 684 with the stipulation that the engineering comments get satisfied.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Santiago this time. You'll get your chance, Nick, don't worry about it. Yeah. Is there any discussion from members of the commission? None? All right, call the roll, please, Dave.
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Mao,
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka.
Yes.
And Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley is a yes, motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, best of luck to you. Item 9F, Robert and Devin Geyer, special permit application for a parent-grandparent apartment property located at 134 Winchester Drive, zoned in R40, SPU 685.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve SPU 685.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Tedesco with a second. Told you. Is there any discussion from members of the commission on this?
Basically, this house
Rob?
with the addition will basically, square foot wise, will fit in with the neighborhood itself. So I don't think we're adding any square footage or anything that's not in fitting with that particular neighborhood.
It's just an additional, like, 700 feet. It's not an extra floor.
Yeah, agree.
All right. Anything else? Seeing none, Dave, can you please call the roll, please?
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Klopp,
Yes.
Commissioner Ma,
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salko,
Yes.
Chair Hermsley.
Hammer says yes, motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, best of luck. Okay, we're going to go back to the public hearing, item 8A and 8B. I guess we'll take them both up as one item. Is that okay? Can we do that, Dave?
Yes, yep, they're both public hearings. And
That way we don't have the applicant having to come back up after
Yeah, that's
after the
fine.
first one. Applicant's okay with us doing both of these as one? For now, yeah. Yep, sure. So again, item 8A, Johnson Development Associates earth excavation application to import, export 10,000 plus cubic yards of material for proposed industrial development property located at 39 Smoran Drive, zoned in an I2 EE 145. This was tabled from our last meeting on July 18th. And item 8B, Johnson Development Associates special permit application for proposed 283,800 square foot industrial building on a parcel over 4 acres, property located at 99 Smoran Drive, I2, SPU 683. This also was tabled from our last meeting on July 18th. State your name and your address for the record and talk to us.
Good evening, Commission. Chaz Evans with Bowler Engineering, offices at 65 LaSalle Road, West Hartford. With me tonight, on behalf of the applicant, is Trip Bailey with Johnson Development Associates, as well as Ethan Chakosky with Atlantic Traffic and Design. Are the plans shown there available, going to be seen well by the commission? We also have them part of the presentation, but if we need larger copies to point things out, we can walk through. As was in the agenda, we're here before you for a proposed industrial development off of 99 Smoran Drive, also at the intersection of Spring Street. To kind of orient yourself here, to the east of this is the Spring Street, Queen Street intersection, which Ethan will go into a little bit more detail. But as I mentioned, it's a 283,800 square foot spec industrial warehouse with a little over 200 employee spaces, loading bays, and trailer storage stalls. With that, we propose 2 micro pool extended detention basins against the wetlands, as well as 1 bioretention swale. We're looking to be serviced on public water, public sewer, electric that'll be fed up Smoran, and gas, which either will be public gas or will have on-site propane tanks. This development was approved in July by the Conservation Commission, and we went through their recommendations, enhancements to the landscape plan, and stormwater controls. We received on August 17th from the town engineering staff that we had satisfied all their comments that were provided in July through planned resubmissions. With that, I'll introduce Trip with Johnson Development to kind of go over their history, the overall building itself.
Thanks. Well, excited to be here tonight to talk about our proposed project. Appreciate everybody's time to hear what we're proposing. I'll just give a quick introduction about our firm and the project in Southington, and then turn it back over to our engineering team. I lead our Northeast Industrial Division, which builds warehouse distribution facilities throughout the Northeast region of the United States, and our company is a privately held real estate development company headquartered in South Carolina, and we've been developing these types of facilities as well as apartment buildings and self-storage facilities since 1987. Currently, we have 23 buildings similar to this under construction throughout the country, and we are actively developing projects in 15 states right now. And since inception, our company has constructed over 28 million square feet of projects similar to what we're proposing tonight.
We were drawn to this site in particular because of its immediate access to Highway I-84. We think that the site is particularly well-suited for this use, given that it backs up to I-84 and that it neighbors other industrial properties directly adjacent to it. Again, the project we're proposing is a 283,000 square foot Class A warehouse distribution facility. We will construct the building without a tenant in place and then market it for tenancy during construction and shortly thereafter. The anticipated schedule for the project would be to break ground sometime ideally in the first half of next year, 2024, and deliver the completed building either in late 2024 or early 2025. And just to give the commission some examples of tenants that have leased similar buildings like this from us recently, some recent projects that we completed. One of them in New Jersey was leased to a company called Freshly. They're a meal delivery kit company. So they assemble the meal kits in our facility and then distribute them from there. Another one of our facilities in Tennessee was leased to a company called Material Bank, and they are a material marketplace for architects and the design industry. Essentially, it's a warehouse full of design samples for the design industry. And also, one example of a tenant is Wallbox. They're a publicly traded company that manufactures at-home charging systems for electric vehicles. So a very wide array of tenants can occupy these types of facilities, and we try to design the building to market and attract as many types of tenants as possible, given that we're building it without a particular tenant in place. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chaz, and he can talk about some of the more particular about the engineering of the project. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trip. So to get and give you a little bit of the history on the existing site, as it stands now, the site is a little under 60 acres. It's a vacant, used to be a farm. A little under about half of the site is wetlands up to the northeast and northwest corners, and significantly wooded in those portions as well. We were, again, like I had mentioned, through the Conservation Commission to be able to fill 2 existing farm ponds. The mouse here are out in the middle of the site here, that really, from the wetland consultant, served no purpose, and we're actually maintaining 2 existing ponds that are within the wetland boundary and making sure our drainage design accounts for replenishing those ponds from a groundwater recharge standpoint. Giving you kind of the background of how the site sits today, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan to walk through kind of the overall traffic corridor and traffic patterns.
Hi, it's Ethan. I'm with Atlantic Traffic and Design Engineering. I have a professional license, engineering license in the state of Connecticut, and a professional traffic operations engineer. We prepared a traffic impact analysis for the development. As you can see on the screen, we took a look at Spring Street and the 2 adjacent signalized intersections with West Street and Queen Street, as well as our primary site access there off Moron Road. As you can see a little bit from the aerial here, and anyone who knows this area, it's primarily industrial and commercial sites to the east of our site, and it's a little more residential to the west. We're situated right between 2 exits of I-84 there, I believe that 31 and 32, which gives an excellent access from I-84, particularly from Queen Street and through the industrial area to the site. The proposed development, 283,800 square foot warehouse site with 63 loading docks and 278 parking stalls. Access is provided via 1 full movement driveway along southbound Moron Drive. We did traffic projections for the proposed development using the Institute of Transportation Engineers. That's the industry standard for projecting traffic for any given use. They've collected studies throughout the country, and we use those studies to estimate the amount of traffic for the proposed use. Despite the size of a development like this, generally they're a little lower as far as traffic generation compared to other more intensive uses. For this development of this size, we projected a maximum increase of about 37 cars entering the site in the morning peak hour and about 37 leaving in the evening. Most of the truck traffic's usually more towards off hours, non-commuter peak hours. This Town Code Section 9-0317, it says that traffic studies are typically required when you have over 75 trips, which we're below. But despite that, the Johnson Development thought it would be critical for this development to evaluate the traffic on the adjacent roadways. So we did perform a full traffic study. We collected data at all three intersections shown up on the screen, as I mentioned, particularly focusing on those morning and evening commuter peak times for weekday traffic. We found that the morning peak hours between 8 and 9 a.m. and the evening peak hours between 4:15 and 5:15. And when we evaluated the study intersections under the build conditions, we found that there was about 6.5-second increase in delay for one of the movements at Spring Street and Queen Street, which resulted in a failing level of service. To mitigate for that failing level of service, we looked at green time reallocation for the signal, and based on that green time reallocation, we believe that would mitigate for any significant impact. We also took a look at the parking on site. It's using the same criteria as the trip generation. We use Institute of Transportation Engineers published data. We found that the average rate would be about 111 stalls for a warehouse facility of this size. We provide 202 employee stalls and 341 stalls total if you include the truck stalls. So with that, there's more than sufficient supply of parking.
Excuse me one second. Is it possible, do you have anything that you could put up on the screen? Because on my computer, it's so small, I can't really see it.
Oh.
And I can't enlarge it for some reason.
Yeah, I
Because
was trying to.
I don't have my own PC, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I can't see that far.
It's the town's PC, they're small.
Yeah, I got it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what you'd want to look at.
I think it's on page 11.
Page 11 of the
study
traffic
itself.
report.
11 of,
The traffic study, not your presentation. The actual traffic study.
oh, you'd like it, is that?
Table
all?
2, I think it is.
You have it on Drive here?
It was posted to the website if you need to find it there.
There it is. I can-
That's all right, I think hopefully he can get it.
There you go. Page 10 or 11.
Yep.
When I enlarge it, it goes off today, it goes off the screen.
Yeah, it's going to keep going on.
Yeah, it's got a good
So I
scroll.
go to enlarge it, but it goes off the screen.
No, I can't.
You got it, Dave.
Thanks,
No,
Dave.
I can't see it.
Yeah, just move it over.
I'm sorry, what was the
Page
question?
11, table 2. There it is.
This table?
Yep,
You could blow that thing up.
Sure.
I'll get it.
There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, so this, that really concluded my testimony, but this does summarize the level of service in the no-build and build conditions. The no-build is just the existing traffic, plus we apply a growth rate based on the traffic in the area. and then we also look at other developments in the area. So we take that data and come up with what we call no build, and then we compare that to what the build is which is with our development. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I just ask a question? On that table, on the eastbound left turn, no build PM commute, you have that rated as a level of service of E. Is that supposed to be F, or is there actually an E rating?
There actually is an E rating, yes.
Oh.
It goes
It's
A, B,
one
C,
above
D,
F,
E, and
right?
F. And that's based on the Highway
Okay.
Capacity Manual, which is a federal
Yeah,
standard
yeah.
for traffic. There is an E rating, and it's E in existing, or in the no-build condition, F in the proposed, and that's when I mentioned that reallocation of green time.
I don't think I've ever heard of an E rating, that's why I asked. I thought maybe it was just a typo, but okay.
No, no,
I appreciate the clarification. Peter?
Forgive my bluntness.
Yes, go ahead.
How could you possibly have a traffic report when you don't have a tenant? Aren't you just guessing? I mean, what if what if you subdivided this building and got 2 tenants? How do you know you have a tenant who isn't going to deliver multiple times a day versus once a day versus once a week? How is this traffic report worth anything to us?
Okay. It's based off of similar uses for a variety of different warehouse uses.
But it's speculative, correct?
It's speculative based on data that's provided by the Institute of Transportation Engineers for this type of use, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So then finish up. Guys, anything else here? You got more to your presentation?
More of the
Okay.
presentations. Mouse slid over the screen. Yes, just to clarify Ethan's point, and was mentioned in Jim Capone's comment letter to us, because we're over 100,000 square feet, we do have to go before OSTA as a major traffic generator. So OSTA is going to require all the counts are satisfied.
Oh, I understand the need to documents. I'm questioning for us to make a decision based on traffic. It is based on speculation versus a tenant. I understand what you need to go do and present.
No, agreed. Yeah, right now, like Ethan mentioned, it was just the use 150 for IT.
With
not-
you.
Yep, not a high cube.
I get it.
So to get to where we ended up here presenting to you the 280,800 square foot, we had to come up with alternatives to present for this board, to present for the Conservation Commission. One of those alternatives that had been thrown around previously as a concept plan is this development here, which is about 330,000 square feet of overall industrial development, significantly more impervious coverage. And it's really kind of, again, would comply with zoning, but it's more of a scattershot industrial campus development, a bunch of smaller buildings and one larger building on the other side of the power lines. The goal, why obviously this complex didn't go through and we presented you what here is consolidating, stormwater consolidating to one building from an operations standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint for, the applicant is obviously a lot more economically feasible and a lot just cleaner development. And disturbed, again, like I mentioned, our overall disturbance is about 23 acres. The overall site's about 60 acres. So what we're currently proposing is significantly less of a disturbance than a industrial campus type development. Another alternate development that we looked at, again, to kind of minimize the impact to wetlands, minimize the impact of the overall disturbance, was to take all stormwater underground and treat it underground and kind of let it out into the wetlands. As you can see, there's 2 significant black boxes, which are underground stormwater systems that would push out. It provides water quality, but does not provide water quality to the level that our micropool extended detentions provide, with significant plantings in the bottom, plantings around it. And really, the micropool basins are meant to become kind of an extension of that wetland system upstream. So again, it's an alternative that we looked at to minimize disturbance, minimize impact of the project. But the best alternative, the best plan we provided to you is what we're presenting with above-ground stormwater management. Again, just to kind of walk through the plan itself, you mentioned the employee loading down along 84, the loading docks to the north. The green hatch you see kind of out next to the wetland. Submission is because we're filling a little bit under an acre of wetland farm ponds where the building currently sits, we're mitigating at a ratio. And this is where the wetland mitigation area is to create a new wetland system. And again, as you can see, the dashes, the micro pools up top, it's a feature that has a sediment forebay in the front, an overall detention component, and then the lighter hatches and the stormwaters in the top are actually where there would be a small pool of groundwater, given groundwater on the site is between 3 and 5 feet below. One slide I'm going to jump to here, which is, the purpose we're before you as item A, is the earth excavation and moving more than 10,000 cubic yards of material. For those of you that may be familiar with the site or not familiar with the site, currently as the development's proposed, there's about 56 vertical feet of elevation change from the one side of the site to the other. Putting a 280,000 square foot building that is all at one elevation obviously doesn't play nice on 56 feet of elevation change. So our goal from a cost perspective, from an engineering perspective, is to leave as much earth on the site. We don't want to be trucking off, during construction, trucks and trucks of earthwork. Not only is it expensive, it's also, harmful in terms of the potential for erosion. So we're looking to maintain as much soil as possible, but in order to stabilize the site, obviously there's materials such as gravel that has to come in underneath the pavements. There's, seed mixes and soils that have to come in for some of the basins, and the pavement material. So overall, on this site, there's about 99,000 cubic yards of cut and about 77 to 78,000 cubic yards of fill to shape the earth on that. So currently, we have a net import of about 21,000 cubic yards of material. Again, over the 10,000 cubic yard threshold, which is why we're before you. With that, again.
Excuse me, just to clarify, you said import?
Correct, 21,000 cubic yards of import. Again, import being materials as general, could be your pavement, could be your gravel, sub-base, could be your concretes. So just overall, given the size of the development, it's the material itself. What we look to do, and I can point out on this artwork where you see the significant portions of green here, and there are actually earthen berms, where we're looking to utilize on-site material, work with the geotech engineer to be able to compact it and, again, replace existing soils on-site so we're not hauling it off-site to some other different facility. So, again, given the site constraints, there is some level of import, there is some material that ought to be exported. The net increase into the site of 20,000 cubic yards, but where possible, from a geotechnical suitability, we're going to look to maintain the soils that exist on site. With that, to kind of jump back to the overall development itself, this is the landscape plan. More detailed, this has an impact on the larger sheet. Out here is worked out with the commission as well, as required by the town. Street trees added, drive the required within the site, and as I mentioned, additional shrub invasive plantings at the edges of the wetland boundaries surrounding. And I guess one more thing to clarify in the landscape plan. Most lawn areas are going to be a hydroseed, but in the basin and on the fringes, there is a intention conservation wildlife seed mix, as well as a intention
So Chaz, I'm just going to make a suggestion to you. I got a pointer here, right? We can see all that. What might be good for people out in the audience or people who are watching this on TV who can't see what you're pointing at is for you to use a pointer. I'm happy to lend you mine if you need it, and just sort of point out the areas up on the screen there. All right? You just push this button right there. All right? That will give you your. If you can, I really would appreciate moving those panels out of my sight so I can see people in the audience as well. Yeah, maybe off to like behind you.
Yeah, we could, because we have it on our.
We have all
we
that,
have it
we
on our
have all this
computer, so-
stuff. Thanks. I like to look at the beautiful faces that we have in the audience, so.
So as I mentioned with the landscaping, we have the street trees along Snoren Drive that was recently completed. Currently, it's a grass swale on that end. We have the hydroseed lawn in these areas, parking lot plantings as required by the town, and then we shift into a basin seed mix, a conservation seed mix, and then up in the wetlands area, we have a wetlands conservation seed mix to establish that.
Okay.
Lighting plan on here as required by town, meeting lighting, not actually, a little bit more restrictive in terms of it's not spilling over from a property line. It's actually not allowed to spill up to the wetland boundary. So again, the lighting plan was designed to have no spillover, 0.0 foot candles at the limit of the wetland boundary and out to the limit of the site. As mentioned again, earthwork plan, reason for item A on the agenda is the import of 21,000 cubic yards net of material. Overall, like I said, moving about 99,000 cubic yards and of cut and 78,000 cubic yards of import. And last but not least, just kind of showing the building itself, as Tripp had mentioned, Class A industrial warehouse. This is to give you a reference point. This is the front corner of the office coming up to the building here. And kind of how it's going to be, the changes in the materials as it goes through. So with that, open the floor to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the applicant for members of the commission? Peter Santago. Thanks.
First, I guess for staff, so why is this a special permit and not just a site plan? Because it's an I2 building in an I2 zone, so, which is within reg. So why is this a special permit and not just site plan?
Through the chair, our regs require that any industrial site over 4 acres come before you as a special permit.
Okay. So if
Given-
this was under 4 acres,
Right.
we'd only have a site plan thing, but because it's above 4 acres is why we have a public hearing, is that fair?
Correct, because it's a single building. If it was multiple buildings, it would still need the special permit regardless of the size.
But if it was a smaller site, we simply would be talking about a site plan and not a
Correct.
public hearing about whether or not it could happen or
As
not.
long as yes, I would say.
Basically.
yes, Yep.
All right, so that's why it's a special permit, not for any other reason than the
Correct.
size of the site.
Yep, you'll see the earth excavation separate, site plan separate, and the
Okay.
SPU separate.
So that's why we have a public hearing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a public hearing, we would simply have a site plan.
Right.
Okay, got it. So thank you for that clarification so that people understand why we even have a public hearing versus not. Because not everything gets a public hearing. And again, it's difficult without a tenant, but what's the proposed look from 84? I mean, is there going to be signage? Is there going to be trees? I mean, it's tough to say without a tenant, but, if you drive by, you see this big thing now. What's is there plan, like what's normally happened there?
Can you pull up the elevations? Because we do have elevations of the frontage on 84.
Yeah.
So this would be the south elevation that you see, if I can orient my mouse, there you go, right here. So this is the view if you're driving by the highway on 94, what you're going to be looking at.
In the middle there.
Yes. So we would expect that the tenant or tenants in the building would want to utilize signage on that side of the building, given the visibility. I'm sure there's signage regulations
Yep.
in town, and we would need to conform with those, so.
Okay.
So further on that, from a grading change standpoint, the building finished floor sits at 213. Up by the time from a grading standpoint, you get up to I-84, you're at about 220, 225. So the building itself shown at 43 feet, you'd probably only see 25 feet to
Okay.
30 feet up above.
Okay, gotcha. And exiting is on Somoran Drive, and then you're taking a turn,
Right onto Spring to go to Queen and get right back on.
right.
84.
Issue, though, if you go left,
Correct. I can go back to the.
there's lots of upset people if you go left.
Right, you want to speak to the breakdown from a truck standpoint?
I mean, we would anticipate that most of the traffic, like I said, is employee traffic is more than the truck traffic
Yeah.
for this type of facility. So you probably would have those employees coming from east or west, they likely could come from the west. But trucks, we anticipate the shortest route being directly to the east, which is, right on Spring Street and then a right down back to 84. I imagine that most trucks will go that direction. As I think you're going to ask, or you may ask, there is no truck restriction on the road right now.
Right.
So, there's nothing restricting that ability, but logically, it's not the most direct route to 84.
Yeah. And what size are the bays that you're going to have here? So these are large-scale trucks, small-scale, what size
So-
are we looking at in regards to the size of the facility?
So the bays are 13 and a half feet wide, and they're loading dock height, so 48 inches off of the concrete dock apron. So they can accommodate anything from a box truck to a full-length 18-wheeler. And we anticipate all those types of trucks utilizing the facility.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr.
And maybe if I could touch on the question about the traffic study itself and the nature of it being a speculative project. Absolutely right. I mean, we're basing the traffic count on the ITE standard counts, which are based on a huge survey of these types of facilities across the country. In our experience, those counts are actually very conservative, and in practice, the majority of our facilities have significantly less traffic than the trip generation count will tell you. And I think, can you pull up the site plan real fast? I think if you look at the site plan itself, that is kind of a limiting factor on the amount of traffic, especially from an employee standpoint, that these types of facilities can generate. The traffic study, I think, is projecting 480 total trips in a typical weekday. So that's 240 in, 240 out. We're only proposing 202 employee spaces. So that, coupled with the truck traffic, is basically assuming that every space on site is being utilized throughout the day. And so if we had a user who had a requirement that had significantly more employees than that, they wouldn't be able to utilize this facility as is, and would either be coming back for a variance to the site plan to add a lot more employee parking, or the facility's just not gonna function for that intensive a use.
Okay.
So the site plan itself is somewhat of a limiting factor as to how much traffic.
Yeah, and you feel confident in regards to the size of the trucks that you have, that those trucks are gonna be able to manipulate in and out adequately, getting in and out in your site? In other words, if you have a busy time of day, and you got a lot of trucks there, getting in and out can be, not great. You feel okay about that?
On our site itself, or
Yeah.
on the road now?
No, on the site itself. No, within the confines of your site.
Yeah, do we have,
Yeah, sure.
tractor trailer turning diagrams?
You have one turning out on Spring.
Yeah, so
Spring to-
we do WB 67, which is the full-length 18-wheel tractor trailer, and we run a computer program to drive it around the site to make sure that all the turning radiuses work. And that's a huge part of how we design these things, is to make sure that it's efficient for large trucks to get in and out of the site.
Okay, all right.
And I know how you feel about the traffic projections, but our traffic projections say, for a peak time period, which is mid-afternoon, you'd have around 9 trucks entering throughout an entire hour. So it's not like, there's an influx of trucks in and out all at the same time, I guess is my point. And there's other things about the site design that sort of limit it from different types of uses. For example, all the truck loading bay is on one side, and then you have all the employee parking on the other. So that leaves it, little, within our land use,
Understand. All right.
not to mention that earlier.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any
Mr.
other-
Chairman?
Commissioner Salka.
Okay. First of all, is Smore Drive a town road?
Yes, it is.
It is, so it's town maintained, and it'll handle that kind of traffic from a width standpoint and that kind of thing?
It was just improved, so.
I'm sorry?
It was just improved recently. We made it wider. So,
Okay,
yes, it's able to handle traffic.
okay. Another question is what is the distance from that driveway you've got there on the north side? If you take Smorn Drive and then you take your left corner of your building, what's the distance from there? Where's I must be hitting the wrong button. Got it?
There you go.
From here to the nearest home that's up in this northwest corner, and then the distance from here to the nearest home. Do you have that?
From the building itself to the nearest home? What are you looking
Yeah.
at? About 1,000 feet to the home closest on Spring Street,
Up here?
to the corner of the building. Up right for the first home, which is north of the building itself. About 1,000 feet. And then looking at the home across to our west there.
Mm-hmm.
About 1,500 feet.
So you got 1,000 and 1,500?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You all set?
Yeah.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Clark?
I just want to go back to the traffic report. And when you talked about the build level of service F, you mentioned a phrase, I don't know what it means. I guess I can assume, you said increased green time. What does that mean?
We just looked at the signal timing for that signal
Okay.
on Queen Street in Spring, and we look at what adjustments can be made to the signal timing to account for any changing traffic patterns. And we found that with a minor retiming, it would account for that level of service deficiency. So
Okay.
we'll have to, it was mentioned, we'll have to go to OSTA because it's a major traffic generator if it's over 200,000 square feet. So they'll review that, and then we'll also have to get OSTA and Connecticut DOT's buy-in to do any signal timing changes. And they'll review it. If they feel we have to do more changes, of course, we'll have to do those as well.
Okay. So they will determine if you have to do the timing change. So they may
Yes.
determine you don't have to, which would render it still at an F? Have to?
I would, my assumption is that if they decided we didn't have to, it would be for a particular reason. Maybe they have an infrastructure project, maybe they disagreed with how we did the analysis in some way, and they don't think it's an F. But I think if we find that it's an F, they would ask us to do some sort of mitigation, so.
Okay. And then my other question is for Dave. So back to the question about why this is here. It's because it's beyond the 4 acres. So what is the exact difference we see from not being on SPU to being on SPU?
It would be through the chair, public input. So the public hearing is triggered at that point.
Sorry, in size, as far as size goes.
It,
Because if what's breaking.
size of the building?
Yeah,
That wouldn't necessarily trigger it. It's just the landform itself. There's building coverage in our regulations.
got it. Okay.
So, you know, the engineers could chime in, but I'm not sure that size of a building would fit on less than 4 acres, along with stormwater management, presence of wetlands, the access roads, all the necessarily storm basins. So,
Okay.
you know, that's why that 4 acres was triggered, because they consider a larger site, and there's likely disturbance to possible sensitive areas, likely increase in traffic of what you normally see, you know, for a business
Okay.
zone.
Understood.
I guess to further that and kind of give you a comparison, again, as you know, every site's different and its challenges. This one, even though it's a 60-acre site, again, our development's only on about 23 to 24 acres. So comparable if it were just a 4-acre and we were underneath and we found the perfect site. If it's stormwater, I've seen 4-acre sites we've worked on in the past that you fit about a 50,000 square foot building. So about, again, a sixth of the disturbance from 4 acres to 24 acres and about a sixth of the size of the building.
Okay, thanks.
All set, Jim? Commissioner Tedesco.
Dave, so is the criteria, it's 50% would be for the footprint of the building on an I-2 zone property like this?
Yeah, I can get you the numbers.
'Cause it
For the
seems
lot
like
coverage, you
they're
mean?
A little over a third.
Building coverage, right?
Our building
Yeah.
coverage is about 12%.
Building coverage, not impervious coverage.
Yeah, so it's 50% of the, like you said, the lot, with the building, not any other improvements, just the building structures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that I was reading that correctly.
okay, yeah.
Are there any plans to service any potential fleet of trucks on the property for any potential tenant? Or like, would that be something available? Are there going to be bays where the trucks might be worked on, et cetera?
You mean from a maintenance standpoint?
Yeah.
I do not know what the zoning ordinance would say about that. That's an unusual use for this type of a facility. Is there something in particular you're?
Well, I'd be concerned because it is, relatively close to residential properties, and there are, and I don't know if it's read as, as the property lines of this property or from the building, but it's 500 feet. It's supposed to be set back from any residential, and then there's a list of other properties that would interfere with your ability to do that. So I'm just wondering if that's anything in the plans, any of the mock-ups, et cetera.
No, it's not. And obviously it is speculative, so we don't know exactly who's going to be occupying the facility. And I don't know what the use table in the industrial zone allows. But obviously, we're assuming that it's going to be some sort of a warehouse distribution use in the facility. Sometimes there's a light manufacturing component to that inside the building itself. But fleet maintenance is definitely not typical use for this type of site.
From the current proposed plan, there's nothing exterior in terms of a maintenance building or like a garage washing station you'd see on some other larger industrial complexes that would, some tenants end up adding multiple buildings. That's not currently proposed here.
Okay. Thank you.
All set? Any other questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Kier?
So these loading bays, if I'm looking at this properly, are not facing 84. They are more oriented towards Spring Street. Is that what I'm looking at? The row of
Correct.
loading bays up top? So unloading and loading of trucks does generate noise. Is there a plan or any thought process around noise mitigation of that loading and unloading based on this location and where these bays will be towards Spring Street?
I think the main mitigating factor is going to be the sheer distance between the facility and the.
Can we make sure we get a little bit closer to the microphone there,
Yeah, I
just so
think
we pick it up?
the biggest mitigating factor is going to be the distance, and Chaz mentioned that I think the closest residence is about 1,000 feet, and to the west is about 1,500 feet from the facility. So that's going to really be the biggest mitigating factor for any noise emanating from the operations on site.
Was it said earlier that some of that truck traffic would happen during off hours, meaning not during daytime hours?
Off
Potentially.
hours.
Is that what that
Ethan, I think,
means?
referenced it would be not during peak traffic hours, so morning rush or afternoon rush hour.
Okay.
There could be some operations in the nighttime hours. Each tenant operates these facilities a little bit differently.
Yeah, but that's hypothetical based on not having a tenant. Okay. Would there be any appetite for changing the orientation of those bays so
The
that they
reason-
don't face the residential property?
The reason it's oriented this way is because of the grade of the site.
Mhm.
The highest point of the site is on I-84, and it falls off towards the wetlands. The loading bays are 4 feet below the finished floor elevation of the building and 4 feet below the elevation of the parking stalls. And so it's a significant amount of additional earthwork to flip the building the other direction.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
You all
Chairman.
set?
Yeah.
Commissioner Volpe?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment again, so without having a tenant, sorry to bring it up, but the traffic study, again, what's to say that you don't get a tenant who has more traffic than what you've predicted on here?
So, you know, this is sort of the industry standard for how we project traffic. There's a variety of different uses. For this one, we use land use code 150, which is warehousing. It's based on the size and the orientation of the site. So, yes, there is a variety in tenants, just like if we were to do a shopping center and I was to do a traffic projection, there's a variety of tenants in a shopping center. But the industry standard is to use ITE that has a vast amount of data that they aggregate and they come up with a traffic projection based on that data. So the individual studies that were used to make that, you know, they varied as well. You know what I mean? So they had a varying, you know, I'm sure there were sites that had more traffic and less traffic, but based on the size of this facility and the orientation of the truck loading bays and sort of who we think that they're gonna advertise to as a tenant, this is our best estimate, you know, based on the data we have.
So we agree that it's somewhat of an estimate at this time until we, or you, rather, have that tenant, and we could have a better idea of what that's like, right?
I would say it's a very educated, based on a data-driven estimate, yes.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Tedesco?
Just one more question. It's actually for you, sir. I can't remember your name. Apologies. So could you, so in the area that could, at the end of Spring Street, how many more trips would make changing the green cycle for that light, where that wouldn't alleviate the issues caused by any potential development here?
I'm sorry, so
So,
how many more trips to the signal? would
would
not
would it-
alleviate?
Yeah, would you make it so you could mitigate the impact to offset?
I don't think I could give you an exact number off the top of my head, to be honest with you. You know, if, I'm sorry, I'd have to come back to you with that exact number.
Yeah, I'm just looking for like
little more.
a max threshold sort of thing. I'm just wondering how close we would be to that. Because of the questions about how much it could vary, I was just asking if there was a, max threshold
Yeah,
that you were aware of.
I'll say the movement already operates at level service E, so you're already close to that threshold. But, if the DOT thinks that we should use a more conservative trip generation, we could also look at other mitigation factors, should that be the case. We can look at other improvements at the signal if we needed to. Or we could look at other signal timing adjustments. There's a lot of factors that we could look into.
Okay.
So it's really hard to say exactly.
I
Does that
appreciate
make
that.
sense? Is that, yeah.
Got you. Thanks.
You all set, Nick?
Yeah.
Jim Grabone?
If I could just ask the traffic engineer, level of service is based on delays. If you could just share with the commission members a level of service, E versus F in seconds, what is the delay with respect to that. That might give a better feel for what we're hearing,
Yeah.
going from an E, no build, to an F build scenario.
Sure, give me a second here. So, for a signalized intersection, and again, this is particular movements, this was for a eastbound left turn, so go to northbound on Queen Street, whereas actually most of our traffic is going eastbound, or southbound. Level of service E for a signalized intersection movement, it's between 55 and 80 seconds of delay, and then an F is anything above 80 seconds. So, does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
So the no build at 75?
Yeah, yeah.
Almost tripped to 80 as exists today.
Right, right.
Commissioner Coles?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So since we don't have a tenant, I guess we can postulate some problems. So if we have a tenant that has local deliveries, we can assume that their vehicles are going to be going in and out of this facility to the surrounding towns, Bristol, Plainville, Waterbury, those kinds of places. To the west of this site is Western Baseball, which is Little League and that sort of thing, right next to the residential properties. That's actually upgradient of where this facility is. So any trucks that are coming downhill, the neighbors in that area are going to be exposed to some jig brake action. And so it's going to get kind of loud there if we have these large trucks coming down. So my concern is not only for the safety of the people using the park, because more trips create more potential for accidents. So, and I realize that the intent is to go directly to Route 10 to make that ingress and egress out that way. However, there's also another state road on the other side, which also has access to the highway. So I guess my concerns are noise pollution from truck traffic, especially like jig brakes, and then also the safety concerns for both those neighborhoods and the baseball fields, and how that could be limited or eliminated with a facility like this.
Well, and you said yourself, the most direct routes to the east. The road has no truck restrictions at the moment. You know, that's one way to help mitigate that, is to make a restriction west of the site, away from the industrial. Other than that, you know, we can work with the tenant and you know, encourage them, trucks to go eastbound towards the Queen Street intersection.
Yeah, I mean, it's a public road, so obviously it's outside of our ability to really dictate what is happening with the motoring public.
Like, you know, like we said, the most logical and direct route to I-84 is to the east, but as it stands today, there's no truck restrictions to the west, so.
What's the carrying distance, as Commissioner Kerr had mentioned her concerns about the truck noise on the north side of the building? So it's pretty far, 1,000 feet. I'll give you that. We're tucked away neatly into this property, and it's probably just as loud from the highway as it is from those diesels that are staying there, hence the second part of my question. They're diesels, and they're dirty, and they stink. So, you know, 1,000 feet might help us out with noise, but idling diesels, it could be another problem. So I have a little bit of concern about that, too.
Some jurisdictions have a no idling ordinance. I don't know if Southington does. But, I mean, I think in general, tenants that operate these facilities want to be, it's a low-margin business, they want to be as efficient as possible. So having a diesel engine just idling in the parking lot certainly is not a good use of their time and money. And as you mentioned, I-84 in the current condition is right next to the site, and the building itself is gonna be a sound buffer to I-84 itself, and that's tractor trailers going 70 miles an hour down the road, which is a much louder noise than a truck sitting.
Yeah, and I'm not, again, I'm not hung up on the noise part. I am more hung about the fine particulates that are gonna be discharged from the site. You know, if there is, you know, if the tenant was a refrigeration facility, and those are now refrigeration trucks, they have to run. We don't have a choice. So now, you know, as much as we wanna be frugal about fuel costs, that's gonna happen no matter what. So again, those are things that, without really knowing the tenant and kind of knowing some of the other details, it's tough to really feel comfortable with looking at this and saying, yes, it is tucked away in the back, it's right next to the highway, but, and those are the things that are kind of coming in my head, but.
Understood, and the challenge with us today is, given the amount of time that it takes to secure materials to build these buildings, and then the length of time of construction, I mentioned in my opening remarks that our timeline would be us delivering the building sometime probably early 2025. Tenants are not willing to make decisions on real estate that far in advance. So the vast majority of users for these types of facilities lease a building within 3 months of needing occupancy. And the only way to provide that space, and there's a huge demand for this type of space and a need for it, is to build speculatively. And it's obviously a huge risk on our end financially to make that investment without a guaranteed tenant already signed up. But unfortunately, if we just waited for a build-to-suit and a tenant before we started construction, the likelihood is that this project would just sit for years, hoping that we find that kind of needle in the haystack tenant who's willing to plan 2 years out for their occupancy needs. So it's a challenge of how we operate in our industry, and it's just how we need to operate to fulfill the needs of the tenant base that's out there.
Good. All right, thank you for your responses. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else, any other member of the commission have any questions? Let's just, if I could then, I want to talk about the thing that Caleb just brought up. Ethan and Chaz, you're both licensed professional engineers in the state of Connecticut, correct?
Correct.
And that requires you to meet certain requirements in order to be licensed, correct?
Correct.
Amongst that would be familiarity with state law and regulations? Correct? Jim is also a PE, am I right?
Correct.
Maybe not for the type of engineer you all are. Maybe this is an environmental engineer question, but you all are familiar with the anti-idling laws in the state of Connecticut, yes?
Familiar, but don't practice with them.
But there are laws, you acknowledge that there are laws, state of Connecticut laws and regulations that regulate the amount of time that a vehicle can idle.
Familiar that there are laws there.
Okay, so I'm looking at right now, section 22A-174-18B3, states that a mobile source shall not operate more than 3 consecutive minutes when such mobile source is not in motion, except if the vehicle is operating for one of the conditions exempted in the regulation. Stuck in traffic, defrosting, heating, or cooling equipment, auxiliary equipment such as refrigeration unit, which I think is something that Caleb brought up, undergoing maintenance, or in order to reach a manufacturer's recommended operating temperature. Is that fair? I mean, I'm reading it right off the State of Connecticut website, right? So some of the questions with regards to idling, I think, are answered within the need to conform and adhere to those regulations with any vehicle or truck that is sitting on your site.
Correct.
Right? Okay. I'm going to stick with the traffic report because we're there, and of the submitted testimony that we received from town residents is sort of centered around that. I want to go back to the chart that you had in your traffic report, Ethan. Again, it's on page 11, it's table number 2. And while you're pulling that up, if we look at the chart, and I'll leave off the left-hand turn from Queen Street, or onto Queen Street from Spring Street, eastbound. Other than that one intersection specific to that left-hand turn, under a no-build or a build situation, the rating of those intersections, which include, again, right-hand turns onto Queen Street, West Street and Spring Street, right and left-hand turns. I'm summarizing, there's more than that, right? But some more in onto Spring, left and right, and some more in onto the site driveway, left-hand turn. There is no rating level of service, LOS, differential, with the exception of the left-hand turn on the Queen Street. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay. And the rating, as you just stated, with regards to the left-hand turn from Queen Street to Spring Street, takes it from what is currently, I think you said was 75 seconds, to somewhere above 80 seconds, correct?
Yeah, it's a 6.6 second increase in delay due
So
to
it's
additional
a six,
left turn.
I had 6.5, but 6.6 is,
I may have had.
I thought you said 6.5 during your, yeah, I'm not,
6.6, I'm
I'm
looking
kind of
at
hung
it
up
right
on that, but, so then is it your testimony as a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, traffic engineer in the state of Connecticut, that this building will have, we'll say, minimal effect on traffic along that corridor?
That's correct, that's my
I
professional.
want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to the overall site now. Just to flip, I think Commissioner Sulker brought up the view from I-84. What's the view from Spring Street? What are we looking at? Is it visible, or is it blocked by the foliage that's sitting out in front there?
Give me one sec. So, given that it's 43 feet tall and the grade does drop off, the potential it is visible from Spring Street. Obviously, given the tree cover, during parts of the year, the amount of visibility is gonna vary.
Okay. Dark sky compliancy.
Absolutely.
I don't want to ruin the lovely dark sky that they have out in that area any more than it already has been by I-84, which has lights all over the place. This one is compliant with dark sky regulations that are embedded in our zoning regulations,
That's
correct?
correct, on the building and within the site, so there's not floodlights going out, everything goes down
Yeah, I
directly.
don't want it to go up,
Yep.
right? Or into people's houses or yards, for that matter, as well.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I got. Anything else from members of the commission at this time? Anything else before we open up to members of the public?
No, thank you for your help.
All right. Take,
Just a quick,
Nick,
is there going to
third
be
time, I
any
think.
tree removal or anything involved on the area abutting Spring Street?
Not the area abutting Spring Street, no,
Okay.
that's existing. There is some tree removal within the site, but again, there is additional to install the stormwater systems.
It was quick.
okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You're going to come back up with any questions that might be raised by the public, so just sort of take notes as you're sitting there, and we'll open up to members of the public as we traditionally do. We offer first any member of the public who'd like to testify in favor of this application, and that will be followed by anyone who wishes to testify in opposition to it. State your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners. Mark Lovely with offices at 710 Main Street, Stellington, Connecticut. When I originally purchased this property, my plan was, and you've seen a plan up here, of an alternative, was to do a 12-lot subdivision of I-2 industrial buildings here. And at that point, Johnson Development reached out to me. Why I think this is a better proposal for the site is this building here is about 50,000 square feet than we were going to propose with the 12-lot subdivision. 12-lot subdivision would have had 329,800 square feet, and that's not maxed out. The 12-lot subdivision does not require a public hearing because it's as of right, because we are in an I-2 zone. So we would not be having a public hearing if we did go for that. The parking spots on this, as been stated, is just over 200. The parking spots on the 12 industrial lots would be 678 parking spaces. So we're actually getting about 1/3 the parking in this proposal that we would have gotten if I came in for the 12 lots. And that was my plan. We had it all laid out and ready to come in before they did. This, for the town of Stellington, is a $45 million investment that they're making. So what happens is, there's only so much that can be done on this site because of the amount of parking for employees and the amount of loading bays. So based on their traffic study, it really can't expand because they can't expand the building without coming back to you guys. Nice thing about this building here is too, when I was originally gonna do the 12 lot subdivision, we had 70% of the land was gonna be used. At this proposal, there is only 45% of the land. With the proposal for the 12 lot subdivision, there was industrial buildings closer to Spring Street with almost about 600 to 700 feet because we were going right up to the wetland buffer zone where this doesn't. So you're getting a bigger buffer from Queen Street with this type of product. And the other thing is you're gonna have all those trees that are gonna be left in front of Queen Street to this building. And the building as it sits will sit 10 feet below I-84, so you're not gonna be sticking up out of a bad site from 84. Only time I think you're really gonna see this building, because those are mostly pine trees in front, along Spring Street, is when you're at the tippy top of Spring Street, look coming down the hill is when you might be able to see it. But if you're in just west of Smoran Drive coming out, you're not gonna be able to see this building because that stays pretty much wooded all year long. So that's basically the reasons that I feel that this is a better proposal than I was actually gonna come in for. As I said before, the other proposal, we do not need a public hearing. It would have been 12 industrial complexes instead of one. A little bit more manageable for the town and oversight, and they are I2 zones, so that includes outdoor storage in 12 different lots, so you really don't know what you're gonna get there either when we go for the subdivision.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Lovely from members of the commission? All right, thanks, Mark. Anyone else testify in favor of this application? Mr. Perillo. Name and address, social security number, the whole thing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. My name is Lou Perillo. I'm the town's Economic Development Director, and I'm here to speak in favor of this application. I got to tell you, you brought up some great questions, and I'm here to address several of them. Commissioner Santiago, fantastic questions about traffic. If I could start, I'd like to address the site. I know the site extremely well. Mr. Salka asked about the closest residential. In fairness, and there's, I think, a home that's on the south side of Spring Street that is very close to abutting, and the former Smoran Farm Home is actually on, it's in a butter to this site. That would probably be the closest to the site. I think it's about 19 acres, heavily impacted by topography, easements through the transmission lines, and wetlands. This is a tough site for the commission to deliberate upon. And one of the reasons I'm for it is if you look at the nature of what they developed. All right, we have constraints on Queen Street, north of I-84 to Spring Street intersection. Our office helped facilitate the widening of Spring Street to direct that right-turning dedicated lane out. We acquired land from the owner of the Plan B Burger, and we shifted that over with the help of the Jim Grappone in the engineering office. We did a steep grant to bring the sewer connection over the bridge. And we also did a steep grant to do Smoran Court, which is a town road. All right, so we've made these improvements knowing that this property was going to get developed. Now here's where it's difficult. And I feel for the residents. I really do, because it's I-2. I-2 is the best land you can have from a development standpoint. It's a 50% building coverage. You could utilize, if it's not adjacent to a residential, almost 100% of the land. You can pave it, park it, and use it. As Mark Lovely testified, he had a 12-lot subdivision, and we were somewhat excited about it, but that leads to a different set of problems. You know, we had a cold storage facility, great on taxes, but then you start thinking about the reefer trucks, as Commissioner Collis stated. You start thinking about other things. It was over 100 feet tall. Would we like it? Sure. Jobs, maybe 30. Everything is automated now. So we have to balance the highest and best use for this site. And that is the number of employees, the site itself, and the traffic. So I'd like to address traffic, because that seems to be everyone's contention, as it should be. All right? And I really liked how Chairman Hammersley made the traffic engineer state on the record, you know, with his credentials and everything, the impacts on Queen Street. With the information from the guides, that's what we're relying on. Now, how could you say if we don't know who the tenancy is, how can we be certain of the traffic? Fact is, you can't. However, the build of the site with the inherent limitations of the site itself, there's 200 parking spaces. How many more are you going to put in? All right? The use, if it's an Amazon distribution center, you're going to have employees going there, or you're going to have trucks in and out of there. Plus, you're going to get the chirping when they're looking for the vehicles as well. So it's a tough site for you guys to deliberate upon. But one of the reasons we're supportive of it is the limitations themselves. You know, asking the orientation of flipping, I thought was a great idea. But it's hard, you know, because of the site itself. At one point in time, the town looked at leaf storage there. Certain areas of the site have a very high water table. We couldn't even store leaves there. So to have the impact of taxation here, which I know you're not considering, but you also have to look at the limitations of the building itself. It's Class A. Class A is top-notch. It's not just some, you know, building that's up to make a lot of money. The other impact that you have to look at with its warehouse, it's not just solely distribution with their targeted tenancy in mind. They could come before you with a tenant later on, could be more traffic. They could go to the state, do some widening of the road, and then you're going to have more traffic. Truck traffic. I'd like to really comment on Commissioner Powell's Western Little League. You know, I'm trying to do something for the town to make that offset intersection a true intersection. So I hope I get your support with that. Because the hypothetical of trucks driving down West Street, I think, is trumped by there's an accident every month on the corner. I think that's more detrimental to the Western Little League than the hypothetical of trucks, and here's why. If you do a traffic study for truck traffic, we've worked with FedEx. They wanted to come to Southington. The wear and tear on their brakes, transmissions, and driver time is more of an expense to them than paying for a site. 54% of FedEx's expense is transportation, 4% is land cost. So when you get into that type of thing, I could prove to you why Queen Street more than likely is the direct route for truck traffic. If you look at A. Dewey Pile, fairly large terminal, they came before you for an expansion with a parking garage for their employees. How many trucks do you see going up West Street? By the time you get through the signalization, grind through the topography up and down the hills, it's easier when you're cruising along at 55 miles an hour going up the grade on between exit 31 and 32 and then down to get off of Queen Street and get to your destination than it is to go up and down the hills with the wear and tears of the brakes. Now, with that being said, there could be times with GPS that someone, errant trucks, but the majority of experienced truck traffic is going to go there. That is not the same as far as it goes for employees, which you had hit on. But I did want to make the sense of, from truck standpoint, more than likely the traffic is going to go from Queen Street. We might have an impact between I-84 and the Spring Street lot, queuing, if you will. But that will be the state's issue, and that could be handled with more green time, as it was stated. I'm hoping I'm addressing everything. Like Mark said, 70% lot coverage for use. We like the 45%. More green. There's a lot of animals that go through there. There's a lot of nature. There's, you know, the wetland soils and whatnot. So is it perfect? No. Is it a lot better than what some of the other uses are? Sure. You want to, you could have a truck stop there. It's allowed in an I-2. You can have auto reclamation allowed in I-2. You could have material handling allowed in I-2. You know, concrete, asphalt. We have a huge need in Connecticut for rubbish. If you know that rubbish is no longer handled within Connecticut, it's going to be trucked to Pennsylvania and Ohio. Well, at some point in time, we're going to have to handle our own rubbish, not only in the state, but in our town. So when you start looking at future uses, it's nice to have this being built on spec. In today's economy, between inflation and interest rates, to have something being built on spec shows Southington's desirability. So I'm here to answer any questions. I hope I touched on everything. I think Mr. Salka with the residential, Mr. Hammersley with some, Commissioner Hammersley with some of the traffic. Peter, I think I covered some lot coverage issues in traffic, but if there's anything I missed, please let me know.
All right,
Thank
any
you.
questions for Lou from members of the commission?
Oh, if I may, one other thing is, if you recall, about 10, 15 years ago, we had a sports complex that wanted to go to the west of this site. through the site to get there. I think a sports complex, which we've been trying to get, would actually generate more traffic on Spring Street itself than some of the uses here because of the site limitations. And if I could, hopefully, someone from Bowler could help us with the West Street reconfiguration, and that's my little pitch before I get off.
Hey, Lou, don't leave yet for a second. You brought up the sports complex, which I am hoping still comes back to life at some point. There's other properties along Spring Street that are currently undeveloped that are possible to be developed as well, correct?
There's, Mr. Sinise owns a few sites on the north side of Spring Street. He has an industrial site, about 27 acres with about 13 acres impacted of wetlands behind BJ's. There's a 19-acre residential site to the north of this. I think Mr. Valentine has an 1.5-acre I-2 site that connects this to two parcels owned by Rockwood Hills of, I think, 15 acres and 17 acres, substantially impacted by wetlands topography. There might be a way of getting there from Curtis Street. The Borshevitz piece is about 35 acres or so. We have the Anthony property piece that's taking 40 acres of the Toll property. I think that leaves about 22 acres remaining of the Toll's parcel. So it's tough to say with the impact of wetlands, but yes, there is more developable, but probably not for, what our concern is limiting the traffic on Spring Street, believe it or not. And although it's 200 cars of parking plus truck traffic for a 60-acre site, that's not bad. And if we can get most of it coming from Queen Street with further enhancements down the line with Mr. Sinise's helping us, because he has a pad site on BJ's that could be developed into a 5,000 square foot, along with what we had Turning Earth before this commission, which was another anaerobic or an aerobic digestion facility. So.
And that BJ's pad site has a stipulation on it, if I remember correctly, to enhance the right turn only lane onto Queen Street from Spring Street, right?
I'm not sure if it's still valid now that we corrected it, but we are trying to hold any other uses for the 27-acre lot behind it to further expand where we can. We think we have a plan where if we can get 3 property owners to cooperate, we can move one of the curb cuts further west to allow another 4 or 5 cars queuing and not disrupt the block the box.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Commissioner, for Lou Perillo? Thanks for coming out, Lou, appreciate it. Anyone else who'd like to testify in favor of this application? Val?
Hi, excuse me, Val Guarino, 1432 East Street. I'm speaking on behalf of the Southington Land Trust, 76 North Main Street. We have a property across the street, 30 acres, and I just want to touch on something that wasn't spoken about here, mainly because it's not really the topic, but there's going to be 50 acres undeveloped. It's not going to be developed anymore, and it's a good wildlife habitat, and they're going to remediate part of the wetlands that that the building's going to sit on. They're going to enhance the, existing wetlands. So from the environmental point of view, notwithstanding all the traffic that was discussed, the land trust kind of supports this particular one because we'll end up with a big piece of open space. Our property's got bear, bobcat, turkey, coyote, and I'm sure they travel across, so it'll give them a lot of habitat.
How many acres is that, Val?
We have 30 acres
Okay.
donated 2 years ago by a very generous Johnson family. It's the last segment of a farm that they owned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Val. Any questions of Val? Thanks, Val. Appreciate it. Good to see you again. Anyone else here to testify in favor of this application? Seeing none, do we have anyone who would like to testify in opposition to the application? Come on up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cynthia Lombardo, and I reside at 511 Spring Street with my husband, Tom. It's a beautiful building. and you guys asked a lot of great questions. But I think we're forgetting the people that live there. You should be asking us about what really transpires daily with the traffic that comes in and out and the noise. We have BJ's that came in. We have the food processing plant that went behind BJ's. So we do have Jake breaks and trucks coming up and down filled with landfill. The concern is noise, traffic, and property value. Because as Mr. Lovely knows, this could be detrimental to property values for the residential homeowners. I work from home, and I can tell you that there are many, many trucks daily. My office sits directly looking out the window at that dilapidated barn or house that's falling down. And my house shakes every time a truck goes by. Pilgrim Furniture, they have people coming in and out, the moving company, and they drive like lunatics coming from West Street. So they can make all the promises in the whole wide world, but I promise you, that's not going to be the case. They're going to use the most convenient way, whether it's getting off West Street. Then why do these trucks, all these trucks I speak about, there has to be 30 trucks a day, at least, at a minimum, that comes from West Street down Spring Street. And I know you all probably have been on Spring Street to go to BJ's during the holidays, Christmas, in the summer, shopping. How long does it take you to get out to Queen Street? Be honest, okay? When people are filling up, how long does it take you? How long do you think it's going to take? Try it when everybody's getting out, all those commercial buildings at the end of the road, when they're getting out of work. Try getting out Queen Street and West Street. Mr. Perillo brought up a couple things I found interesting with regard to bringing up that, well, we could get a waste plant, a garbage plant there. Okay, maybe. The Little League or the sports complex was a great idea. That would have been fantastic. But you got to compare, like in real estate, apples to apples. We're talking a distribution center, a big distribution center, not a sports complex that would have daily use and close at night. This is going to run 24 hours a day, okay? And it is going to impact the residents of Spring Street and the surrounding neighborhoods of Summit Farms and Spring Hill, absolutely, unequivocally. And it is going to affect you and everybody else that lives in Southington that uses Spring Street and Queen Street, because it's going to add to, and West Street, because it's going to add to traffic. So the biggest concern is the traffic. I don't care how many promises you make. I don't care if you change a green light for 6 seconds. It's not going to help it. It's going to be a problem, I promise you. And I also promise you that they are going to use West Street just like they do now. There was a lot of promises before when these other businesses came in that the trucks wouldn't come down Spring Street, even though legally they are allowed by law, like was stated. But then you have the noise. Right now, you can hear a pin drop on Spring Street usually at night, unless we have the race cars that visited us a couple times around Easter time. And when these trucks go down, and they're going to be doing it 24 hours a day, they shake our homes. So don't kid yourself. The residents are going to be affected by this. So is the baseball field. So are the people, because the traffic's going to affect us all. But the noise is a big question as well, because we can hear on those dark nights when there's nothing going on and everybody's settled down for the day, we can hear the traffic at 84. I promise you we're going to be able to hear the traffic and the work that's going on at the distribution center. It looks like a beautiful industrial building. And they're, want to set it up beautiful, that's great. That doesn't help us. We're going to have to deal with this and live with this. And the noise is going to be there 24 hours a day. Trucks are going to be there, 200 people going to and from work. And how many shifts are there going to be? None of that can be answered because we don't know who's going to be in there. So you don't know what's going to be in there. So I really just ask that you guys really think about this long and hard, because it's going to not only affect my life, but it's going to affect all your lives and all the people, your loved ones here that live in Southington. So thank you for the time, and I hope you keep our thoughts.
I appreciate you coming out tonight, Cynthia. I can assure you that this commission takes those into consideration in a very wholesome manner on virtually every application that we see, which are hundreds a year. So any questions?
I know you guys do a great job, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, Cynthia.
Big corporation and big developers, that's America that wins quite often. So, thanks.
Any questions to Cynthia from members of the commission? Thanks again for coming out. Anyone else who'd like to testify in opposition to this application? Hi.
Hello, evening, everybody. My name is Ken Bauer. I live on 562 Spring Street. I will try not to be as anecdotal as I feel like I want to be and emotional, but I also understand that business is business. I work for a cybersecurity firm that's in the UK. We're growing and growing very large, so for me to stand here and shake my fist and be angry just makes me sound like a hypocrite. My main concern are a few things in the fact that I do live on Spring Street, and we do live very close to Spring Street. We bought our house a year ago. We've worked very hard. We've traveled around the states chasing jobs and boosting our career to be able to buy a house. Unexpectedly, this comes up, but I understand that as a business prospect for all those involved, it could be very beneficial. There is tax benefits for the town itself. For anything that I would say I would agree with this building would have to be done with certain stipulations, knowing that traffic is the big conversation here. My house doesn't sit no more than less than 100 feet from the road itself. It's a very narrow road. There's no shoulder. You have a little bit of the culverts on the side for the water to flow down. Knowing that everybody wants to come down from west, down the hills towards Queen, that if you were to spend an hour on that road, you would see the traffic that it does go through. We had a police officer sitting on Summit Hills for about 2 days in a row, and his sirens were going off about every 5 minutes. It's a very busy day, so within a few minutes of a poll report from the PD, you would obviously see that it's a very busy road, and people don't really necessarily abide to speed or regulation. That we can't predict what businesses are going in there yet, if this is a prospective building, knowing that if 200 parking spots for employees but 67 truck bays is indicative that there will be large vehicles going up and down there at any point. I did want to ask questions. I did read the traffic report. I actually read all the documents for this application. That on table 1 of the traffic report, the ITE proposed for a land use 150 reports at any peak hour is 51 extra vehicles, not what I heard originally. So 51 is assuming that's 51 vehicles of all classifications. If we know we have 67 truck bays, how much of that 51 would be trucks? You break that down by hour or break that down by minute, you're looking at a truck every few minutes coming on in either direction. That would require Spring Street and additional research to maybe post speed humps, speed tables on the road to maintain it. I know that's a big ask, but you're also now considering you have houses that are 100 feet away from trucks that'll be adding 51 extra vehicles at any peak hour. That's not necessarily my favorite thing to hear or see. I do work from home, so I also know that there is a very busy road. It's a very heavily trafficked road. I understand that it does connect to major throughways. I'm still relatively new to this area, so I'm still learning the roads very much, but after being here a year, you can quite see it went from being a residential to a throughway. I know that we do have the 2 businesses that do heavily use it at the bottom of the hill, plus I see 18-wheelers from other businesses trying to sneak away. If they're coming east from westbound, they will go down Spring to cut through. If we know that generally from the studies that trucks are more efficient to turn right to Queen Street, and they have widened the roads a little bit, I wouldn't say that those roads are still not even wide enough. The right-hand turn on to Queen Street is so narrow, and so rather so short, that if you had anything larger than a box truck, if you're starting getting into attached vehicles like a trailer, a single 18-wheeler that gets blocked by 1 car, 2 cars trying to turn left, onto Queen. That right-hand lane is now gone because that 18-wheeler just takes it away, which would then require discussing with Plan B and businesses around there to keep cutting that shoulder back. The left-hand turn from Queen to Spring Street is 2 lanes that merge very quickly into 1 lane, then split back off. One extra 18-wheeler trying to turn right there is now going, and if there was anybody ahead that was slowing them down, maybe they're going a few miles under the speed limit, that's gonna spill out. That'll have a ripple effect. You know, you have that 18-wheeler who is taking this merge lane right as soon as you hit the entrance into Applebee's and Staples, that's gonna slow back down. Plus the light from Queen to the light that allows you to turn left towards Denny's and the hotel and right to I-84 is extremely short. 1 to 2 extra trucks on that, and that's gonna keep backing up. These things will ripple. Without knowing prospective, and I understand you build on prospective, on the idea that it's good land for business, you don't know the businesses, but knowing 67 truck bays, that's distribution. I've worked in distribution. I know what it looks like. It will be used for trucks, and anything larger than just a U-Haul rental truck is going to slow down everything in that area. I did read traffic studies based on sound. I know that the sound, if you live on Spring, will be quite loud, which I, obviously am opposed to, but I also understand that as you get further away from wavelengths, sound goes away, but the traffic sound from the warehouse would actually be eaten up on the hill. And now I'm shooting myself in the foot that I'm opposing this and saying that, but that's a legitimate study. Decibels will, as the wavelengths continue, they stretch out, and sound ends up dying as you hit distance. Major concern that I could not find any data anywhere on the internet, and I must have spent 2, 3, sweaty days at my computer stressing about this, and we just bought this house, I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? Is understanding market value for a house. I understand that it's a kind of a 50-50 split. Some businesses, when they do come in and things do happen, it can be beneficial for the town. But it also, depending on the type of business, if this was a high parcel distribution center like an Amazon that was 1 million square feet being built 0.2 of a mile, which is the distance this warehouse is from my house, that's obviously going to impact prospective buyers because they're not going to want to buy a house that has a warehouse that large. Without knowing these things, the idea of this project sounds, it's scary and risky for both the people who live within the area and then the community at large. I appreciate your time and thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate you coming out. Anyone else who'd like to testify in opposition to this application?
Tom Lombardo, 511 Spring Street. I do agree with both the statements that were made. But the traffic and everything like that, but I mean, we're looking at, what they're going to be doing to the land and to the property and filling in what you're calling a farm pond. I don't know what a farm pond is. A pond is a pond to me. So they're going to be filling that. I'm not sure if the people know the amount of cubic yards, 10,000 either being pulled out or being pulled in. That's a lot. That I'm sure everybody here knows how much material that is on top of the material that they're going to be bringing in for building the building. So I'm looking more to the environment and as he talked about the open land. I don't know if, I didn't understand, is this project going to affect the open land? If this project doesn't go through, we're not going to have the open land behind our house? What was the open land? I don't understand that, the statement that he was making. I mean, we have open land in back of our houses, to my understanding, that is set in stone. So I don't understand why he would, a person that is for open land would want, this to be done to the land and to the property. But and environmental concerns, spillages or whatever, and like I said, we don't know what's going in there. So I'm looking more for the environment and the land, you know. I mean, obviously, as Mr. Lovely said, something's gonna go in there eventually, you know? And it's, you know, it sounds like, you know, we're being bullied into, well, you could have had this, you know, and we wouldn't have had to come in front of you or anything like that. You know, so, you know, he's a big name in this, in this town of Southington. And I hope he doesn't, you know, just get what he wants because of his name. Thank you.
Tom, can I ask you just point of clarification, who's a big name in the town of Southington?
Mr. Lovely.
Mr. Lovely doesn't live in the town of Southington. You're a bigger name in the town of Southington and matter more to me than he does.
He has more property and more interest in the town of Southington than I do. Correct? Am I correct in saying that?
I don't know. I don't look at that stuff, but you're a resident of the town of Southington. To me, you're more important than he is, with all due respect to Mark. And I respect Mark, yep.
Respectfully, we just can't get into character.
Yeah, I know. I just want to be clear that, you know, we take your opinion and your testimony very seriously, so I appreciate you coming out. Anyone else like to testify in opposition to this application? Seeing none, if we could have the applicant come back up. Can the applicant come back up? We have some questions. So the questions were noise, traffic, property value. That's pretty much in a synopsis of what was brought up by the people who testified tonight. If you want to please address those. Are there any information you have on the impact to the noise currently in the area?
Again, I think as it relates to noise, currently I-84 is directly adjacent to the building we're proposing, and that's traffic 24/7, driving at 70 miles an hour. Significant noise generator. Our proposed building is going to be a sound buffer for at least the length of the building for I-84, and then be a sound generator on the backside, as everyone correctly noted. But those truck bays are over 1,000 feet from the nearest neighboring residence, and that distance is what we believe will be the necessary sound mitigation for noise issues on the site.
So we know where the neighborhoods are, where these people are coming from, and where the residential areas are. They're all zoned as R40 in that area, I believe, correct, Dave? That's an R40 zone? What's the distance, to follow up on a question that was asked earlier, what's the distance between those neighborhoods and I-84? Can we get an estimate? While you're looking at, oh, go ahead.
In relation to the neighborhood to the west, you're about 1,400 feet. And again, I'm taking it from a corner here. I don't have the furthest one as the development winds a little bit closer than I-84.
So 1,400 feet, and I think your testimony earlier was that the closest resident by means of the roadway was 50, or the driveway was 1,500 feet, and by the path of the crow, it was roughly about 1,000 feet, correct?
It was 1,000, 1,500 from the building, correct?
Okay. From the building, correct, okay. The closest part of the building to the road, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay. The next thing, traffic, I assume, is addressed in the traffic report.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I need to rehash, we kind of had a lot of conversation about it. I guess I'll just respond to one clarifying point that one of the neighbors made, which he noted 51 during a peak hour. That's the weekday PM, that's the total trips, so we had 14 entering and then 37 exiting. So I referenced the 37, which is the one-way trip.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, and that's just the peak hour of the day. Obviously, there's varying level, you're not gonna have that every single hour of the day. You know, there's a lot less on less busy parts of the day, so. just to
And
clarify
Mr.
that point.
Mr. Bauer brought up what I thought was a good point. When you're referencing trips, are those done by vehicle type, or is it just sort of a generalization?
So we look at
A truck is different than a car.
We look at truck trips and we look at car trips. Again, based on the IT projection for this type of facility for this size, we, during an AM peak hour, during a commuter peak hour, you'd have about 6 as a conservative estimate, 3 entering, 3 exiting. And then at the peak of the day, which is typically off commuter peak hours, so it's probably midday, maybe 2 p.m., something like that, maybe earlier than that. At most, you'd have 9 trucks entering and 8 exiting,
Okay.
according to our projections.
Any information, the last item that was brought up was property values and this potential effect on property values. Has there been any study done on impact to real estate property values? First of all, I don't think it's required by our regulation, is it, Dave? A property value study?
Mr. Chairman, not that exclusively. No, you can take certain things into consideration, but not the study itself.
Okay. Any information you have on that?
We haven't done any study related to the value of residential
Okay.
properties, no.
Okay. Anything else you all want to add?
No, I just really appreciate everybody's time tonight. I think everyone had very astute questions, and obviously the challenge is that we don't have the tenant in tow. I would love to be standing up here with a tenant in tow right now. That would make my job a lot easier. Unfortunately, given the nature of the industry, that is just a very rare occurrence these days, and it's really a situation of if you build it, they will come, rather than the other way around. And so, again, based on all of the buildings that we've built, the trip generation that's reflected in the IT data is conservative. The site plan that we're asking for approval on really does limit the amount of traffic that those tenants can generate out of that type of a facility. If somebody wanted to generate significantly more traffic than 240 trips in and out each day, we'd be having to come back to this board for a site plan modification to add parking spaces to fit that type of an intense use on the site. So we think that we're being conservative. In our experience, the traffic is actually significantly less than that typically, but we want to put out their numbers that are kind of a worst-case scenario for this type of analysis. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions for members of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, excuse
Yep.
me. I do have one issue, and I brought this up in the comments regarding the traffic report. I just wanted a clarification, and I didn't hear this in the testimony. Figure 5 on the truck trips exiting on Smoron, it says 50% of the traffic would go right on Spring Street, 50% of the trucks would go left on Spring Street. I just want a clarification on that, and I didn't hear that in the testimony.
Yeah, that's what we showed here for conservative analysis.
So your assumptions are saying half the trucks would go right, half the trucks would go left?
Potentially.
And those that are taking a right on Spring Street, all the trucks would take a right on Queen Street, is that correct?
Yeah, to go down to I-84.
Okay, and that's what you would submit to OSTA?
This is what we'd submit to OSTA. They review, they may agree, disagree. We'd have to revise the study.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any reason to keep this public hearing open from any member of the commission? No objection to closing the public hearing on this one? All right, we'll close the public hearing on that. Moving on to,
Mr. Chairman, that was for both,
yep, sorry?
for both the earth excavation.
For both, yeah. Moving on to the business meeting portion of our agenda, item 9A. This is for the earth excavation of Johnson Development Association. Earth excavation application to import, export 10,000 plus cubic yards of material for proposed industrial development, property located at 99 Samoran Drive, zoned in I-2 EE 145. This was tabled from July 18th. What's the commission's pleasure on this one?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Jim or Dave, where on Spring Street was it expanded? So where is it wider? Because they're right, it is a very narrow street in certain parts, like sudden death narrow. So where did we expand?
So basically, we went from the intersection of Route 10 to the extent of Plan B's driveway. So when they came in for a zoning permit, they were willing to work with the town. We also worked with Blue's office to make it happen. They were very cooperative. That was the extent of what we can do. Really, Spring Street should be widened all the way to at least the railroad tracks. And Mr. Sinise, when he came with his application for BJ's, attempted to do that. But, you know, there's a lot of entities involved, you know, trustees and things of that nature. So these are off-site improvements that we're talking about with an application.
Was the widening directly because of those developments, though? Because of that increased traffic in that area?
We knew that, again, there is a change to a vacant building, Plan B came in. So the queuing in that area was a concern of the town, so we brought it to the owner's attention, and he agreed with it, and we made some improvements internal to his lot, and for, I'll call it an easement, to make the strip widening on his property. So it was very cooperative, but again, there was an issue, and that's the reason why the do not block the box is there.
Yeah.
So that was an afterthought even after the improvement was done, so.
Thank you. I guess my point being for my fellow commissioners that the stress on Spring Street may initiate more expansions like what we've already had to do there. So I guess discussing that was important to me, just to kind of understand kind of the history as to why that had to happen and what it may mean, since we're doing all this speculating about traffic anyway, for our future in that area. So thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have for Jim
Okay.
at this time.
Any other conversation from members of the commission? We're still looking for a motion,
Yeah,
but
a question. So Dave, so there's a lot about what we consider, what we can't consider, particularly with this earth excavation thing. So, so wetlands conservation, everybody was okay with all this, so.
Yep, correct.
So in regards to us considering environmental things, that's already been approved by another
Correct. It was-
entity, correct?
Yeah, through the chair many items came up at the meetings. There was a site walk. Commission voted all in favor of it. No particular issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as any kind of environmental things, that point, as far as our consideration, we can't consider that because another board already did, basically, right?
Well, it did gain the blessing of Conservation.
Gain the
Commission,
blessings
so-
of that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair. With that, I'll, as far as earth excavation, I guess I'll move to approve EE number 145.
we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Salko with a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, can we call the roll, please, Dave?
Commissioner Tedesco.
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Ma.
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka.
Yes.
And Chair Hammersley.
Hammer says yes, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 9B, Johnson Development Associates, special permit application for proposed 283,800 square foot industrial building on a parcel over 4 acres, property located at 99 Sworn Drive, Zone I2, SPU 683. This was tabled from July 18th. Commissioner's pleasure.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So again, so Dave, is what we see here within our regs?
Yes, there is no special variance or anything required.
Okay.
It had proper review.
Okay, so, I mean, I gotta swallow hard, but we approve buildings without knowing who's there all the time. And it's against the law for us to say, I'd rather have this than that. So we can't do that. We can't say, let's wait for something that I'd really like. We have to weigh in on what's in front of us. That's what we have legally. And the traffic report, even though it's a guess, is what it is. And I know in the 6 years I've been here, I've yet to see, I've seen worse traffic reports than this. I haven't seen one of them have any basis to deny an application in my 6 years here. It's an I-2 facility in an I-2 zone. It's within regulation. As far as I could see legally, I think I'm duty-bound to say yes to this. And so with that, I'll move to approve SPU number 683.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Salko with a second.
Can I
Any-
ask a question before we proceed?
Well, yeah, we're going to open it up to discussion. Why don't you lead that off there, Nick?
Is there any way that we can stipulate that anything west on Spring Street of Smoron Drive be truck prohibited? Or we can have them have to seek it out, or, okay.
Nope, we've had, Mr. Chairman, we've had several requests on multiple arterial roads through the police chief, who's the legal traffic authority. He cannot enforce a no-through traffic sign. Because somebody will have a destination somewhere.
Just a comment on that, we tried that on West Street with the daycare, and the only way that passed was they voluntarily changed and put the signage up, but we were told that we could not dictate a right turn only, but they cooperated and they went along with it, but we can't stipulate it.
Yeah, and I would only be looking for truck traffic specific, but could the developer willingly build that into the passage, or is there something that we could mandate it with that, if they agree? Or-
You're saying with a sign, what are you saying?
Signage, or possibly an internal regulate, okay.
We can't enforce it.
You all set, Nick? Okay, any other comments, questions, members of the commission?
I feel you, though. I know where you're going.
Jen?
I just want to explain my thought process, and that's considering the as of right that we heard about, which had a huge impact on my decision. Those numbers really scared me. I think we also heard from our land trust that this is also protecting more sensitive habitat than the as of right. That also goes along with our plan of conservation and development. So that's where I'm coming from in my decision.
Okay. Anyone else? Dave or Jim, are we able, following up on Commissioner Tedesco's comments, are we able to stipulate speed bumps or tables on Spring Street?
No, Mr. Chair, that'd be a safety issue in terms of, plowing and public streets don't do well with those.
Police chief would not enforce it, nor the director
They
of
don't
public
like,
works.
they don't like them in parking lots. They definitely wouldn't have them on a road.
It would present, I'm guessing, problems for Public Works when it comes to plowing that road as well. I live on Hobart, I'd like to see speed tables myself, but, I mean, I feel you, because I get the speedsters down there. Some of them are buses, by the way, so I'll put that on the record, but is there any other comments or questions from the commission before we call for a roll call? I'll just say, I feel everything that's being said. I have spoken out on the pinch point at Spring and Queen on various applications. It's a matter of record. That to me is the worst part. I've come out of BJ's and actually taken a right to go down West Street. I live right up here. But take the longer route because it's easier, because the traffic backs up all the way back there at some times during the day. So I feel that, but as Commissioner Santiago said, because it fits the regulation, we really are duty-bound to approve it. If it didn't, then we would have some leeway. We really don't have that leeway. Just as a matter of record and legally, we don't have it, and therefore, there's no other option as far as I can see other than to approve this application. Having said that, I think that as Lou Perillo stated, is this the best and highest use for the site? I think that given the other alternatives of a 10-lot subdivision, is that what it was, a 10 or a 12-lot subdivision, nearly doubling the amount of spaces, taking away from the open space that's going to be preserved and granted over to the land trust. I think that all those are positive moves by the developer, which I appreciate, but in a perfect world, without the legal obligation, I might think otherwise, but I really don't think that we have an option but to approve this. And with that, we'll look for a roll call, please, Dave.
Commissioner Tedesco.
Very reluctant, yes.
Commissioner Volpe.
No.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Ma.
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka.
Yes.
Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes 6-1. Item 9C, Johnson Development Associates Site Plan Application for proposed 283,000 square foot industrial development to include loading docks, trailer parking, and employee parking property located at 99 Sporn Drive in an I-2 zone, SPR 1869. Do we have a presentation on this? Looking at the applicant. Is it all included in what you gave to us already? Typically on site plans, there's like a separate presentation. It's not open to public hearing, so this just talks about the site.
Because we had the special permit, everything was included on the
Okay.
application.
Okay, any questions on the site plan from members of the commission? I think we kind of hammered that one earlier.
I have one, I guess.
Pete, go.
So is the site expandable?
Looking from a building standpoint or a parking standpoint, or?
Building.
No, I mean,
So I just want that on record. So in regards to the use of the site, you're maximizing the use of the site building-wise. So as far as expansion or anything like that, you can't do, you've maxed out or not?
From a zoning perspective, I don't believe we're
There's still
maxed
3
out,
years ago.
but in order to expand, we'd have to come back to this board for a site plan
So
approval.
so wetlands, though, would be north, as I'm looking upward, right? On your site?
So from a feasibility standpoint?
Yeah.
Could the building be expanded and have to come back? The answer to that one is yes, but given that your grading constraints,
Yeah,
and there's a significant hill here, you
Yeah.
have significant the cost to expand another 5,000 square foot of building would create significant
Okay.
retaining walls, and you'd lose parking at closer.
all right. So site-wise, in terms of traffic flow within your site, you feel you're okay with that, and you've done the study in terms of in and out for trucks and things like that. So you feel comfortable, you've maximized the site in terms of traffic flow inside your site, as well as exit and entering from Sonoran Drive.
Correct.
Okay, that's it.
Any other questions on the site plan from members of the commission? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion of SPR 18669.
Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Commissioner Santago with a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, Dave.
Commissioner Tedesco.
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Ma.
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka.
Yes.
And Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's a yes, 7-0, motion carries. We are now on, I believe, item 9I. Are you in concurrence with that, Dave?
Yes.
Huh?
Bond release.
Just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Yep.
We're not doing G?
So we yeah, we did.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, we did not, so you're right, thank you, Peter. Items G and H, I'm going to look for a table on both of those, so let's take them up separately. Item 9G, thank you very much, Carm Properties Site Plan Application for Proposed Hotel with Associated Parking, property located at 95 John Winchell Crossing. It's a B zone, SPR 1871. Do we have a motion to table that?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tedesco with a second. Any discussion? I don't know, there is one, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voice vote's fine on that, Dave? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep. Motion carries. Item 9H, Carm Properties floodplain filling application for proposed grading within a flood zone in association with proposed hotel and parking, B zone, FF 274. I would look for a motion to table.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Tedesco with a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Santago. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item
With that, Mr. Chair, do we have to formally table item 9D?
Yes.
Oh, we did not do that.
Nope.
No.
Oh, I have it marked,
I'm
but
paying attention to it.
there's chemo brain is actually a thing, you know,
Chemobrain,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I
okay.
appreciate you keeping me on task
No
here.
problem.
9D, Kurt Hoyst, petition to change a zoning district boundary from R2025 to I2, property located at 322 Lazy Lane, zone change 576. Looking for a table on this.
So moved.
Commissioner Santiago, do we have?
Second.
Commissioner Soka, any discussion?
This is the one that the applicant requested, correct?
They did, and I think we're looking for some additional information as well, so it's sort of a mutual,
Yes.
it's a mutual thing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9I, release a public improvement bond in the amount of $1,200, Summa Construction Services LLC, property located at 1482 Manor Waterbury Turnpike, SPR 1149.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make,
I just want to
Go ahead,
provide some
Jim.
explanation
Yep.
on this. This is an older bond, and with the recent approval, the actual sidewalk improvement costs were higher, so the developer provided a newer bond, so we're going to release the old bond to him, so.
You have a newer, bigger bond.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you'll see this in the future, once it's done
Ooh,
again. You
bigger.
might say, why are we getting this again? So it's the higher bond that you'll see released in the future.
I like new and bigger bonds. Those are good. Protect the town. So, yeah, so we're looking for a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve SPR 1149 to release the bond.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Tedesco with a second. You guys are a tandem today. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we need a roll call on this, Dave?
No, it's administrative, you can do a voice vote, it's fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, administrative items. Dave, this is where you take some of this?
Yes,
You wanna
Mr.
talk about that?
Chairman,
Yep.
we've had quite a few home ocks in the past, specifically for firearms, local transfers, so we know what's required, and the state's very stringent, is the federal regulation on that. So moving forward, the home occupations can be addressed by staff. There's no need for any hearings. So in this case, it is a standard request for such online retail sales of firearms and local transfers.
And this is consistent, commission members, this is consistent with something I think I brought up about a month or two ago about having these agenda items done administratively. I think it's just simpler for the applicant mostly. They are sort of de facto. I don't think anyone's ever voted against them. I don't know if we're actually allowed to vote against them by statute, but irregardless, with regards to this one, as you may recall with previous ones, there's a lot of federal regulation on firearm sales that the applicants are required to meet, one of which is getting approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's why this one was handled administratively. And moving forward, that's the plan unless I hear from commissioners otherwise. And that, any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, or see none. Well,
Just,
Nick.
I don't know if it's more appropriate to do this, like, while we still have the public portion open, but I'm wondering, can we post that items will be tabled ahead of time? Or do we have to wait for the formal process
You know-
before making an announcement like that? I would
Yeah,
imagine the latter is.
The issue is that the applicant could just show up and request that, oh, I don't want to table it anymore, let's hear it. So then everyone who saw it online didn't show up, then it's not due process. So we unfortunately do have to, have the meeting itself make that decision.
I
So-
assumed as much.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just wanted to have that on the record for the disgruntled folks.
I think that's that's a good point, Nick, and I'll just say, behind the scenes, what,
Yelled at?
yeah,
By somebody who
well,
just doesn't understand the
yeah, you
process?
gotta have thicker skin than that, but, I know. That's why I sort of put it out there at the beginning, and behind the scenes, I'll tell you that there were a number of emails that we all received with regards to that particular application. I responded to everyone individually, letting them know that that item was going to be tabled. So to the extent that they could spread the word, I mean, I'm not putting it on our residents, but I tried to do the best that I can. I hear what Dave's saying. Sometimes we don't know about that until literally we walk in the door. So it's kind of tough to try to get that out there otherwise, you know, I really don't know how else we could do it.
Further in the case, if there were communications, like on your behalf, saying that it was going to be tabled, would we then table it again if for some reason the applicant showed up? Because then,
We'd have to continue it, yeah.
okay.
And the tabling is at the discretion of the commission, so we all have the option to do that. And as I've said before, I'll table anything that's not ready for action. I believe that it's only fair to us and members of the public, quite frankly, to have as much information as we're going to be required to have in order to make an educated decision on some of these that tend to be, you know, controversial, difficult, nuanced, call it whatever you want, but we try our best to do whatever we can, so. But your point is well taken. I get it, and I feel the frustration. That's part of why I go out there in the audience to try to let people know, you know, if you're here for this, it's not going to happen. We've had it happen on other applications before, and I try to do my best to get the word out to everybody as soon as I know that we're going to be able to, we're looking for a table on it, including talking to members of the commission about it, so that they all know. But I hear you. I feel you. You know, I think it's a good idea.
Get it out in the public eye as much as possible.
Yeah, transparency, sunshine is is a good thing. So any other comments on the administrative front? Before we move to item number 11, to those of you that I've not informed, as previously stated, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer back in March. I received a subsequent scan after 6 rounds of chemo last week that I'm no longer stage 4, that the cancer on my upper chest and lung area has cleared up, and now we're only dealing with the stuff up in this area. So I just want to share that good news with you all. And again, I appreciate everyone reaching out and wishing me well and being there to support me. It's been a great thing, and special thanks to my friend Bob Soka for manning those options where it really wasn't an option for me to be here unless you wanted to see a lot of unpleasant things, which I did not want to share with y'all. But so again, thank you all for your support and you know, onward to bigger and better things. And the future holds 3 future applications that we have out there. Dave, you want to talk about those real quick?
Sure, we have a special permit for an oversized garage on Robindale. We have a special permit for a 600 square foot addition to a non-conforming residential structure. And we also have the text amendment for the reorganization, which will be on for the 19th, but we can discuss it on the 5th some more, but not a public hearing.
Will Glenn be here during that meeting or the 19th?
The 19th.
19th
So we just want to clarify that there's no specific changes that
Right.
someone would say, in the previous regs it was this, now it's that. We want to just say it's a reorganization, upgrade, consistency with state
Right.
mandated reg changes, that type of thing.
Okay, got it.
So the proposed language right now is still open to modification?
Yep, get him in.
Yep. Okay. With that, anything else from members of the commission? Seeing none, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mr.
I'm going to give it to Solka. You want to make a second, Nick?
I'll take a second.
Tedesco with a second.